Hey, I'll struggle. So I get asked pretty frequently, is like, what would my advice be to a young person planning on joining the military? And it's always pretty generally the same. So I figured I'd just make a YouTube video on it rather than continually responding to people who ask me about it. My first question is, well, why are you joining? You know, what are your reasons for joining? And if it's, and it could be pretty much anything, like maybe you're joining to get you out of a financial situation, or maybe you're joining because you have a, hard home life, or maybe you're in a town that you just desperately to get out of. But, have a solid reason for joining. Reasons not to join is, I love Call of Duty, the military isn't a video game. You're not going to end up as, John Wick, or whatever. So don't go into the military, just because, you enjoy how the military is portrayed in media. It's not a good reason to join. There's much better reasons, and you can find them for joining. Then pick your branch. If you're planning on joining the military and you found a good reason to join, then pick a branch that, makes sense for you. It's pretty obvious, if you're really into like being by the sea, then there's plenty of jobs in the Navy, that will put you, along the coast, go into that then, and the Marines right along with them. If you're really into flying, you can find flying jobs in most branches, but obviously the Air Force has a higher number of them than most others. So you go that route, or maybe you don't want to get on the ocean or fly, maybe Army then. But yeah, pick a branch that makes sense to you. You can join a branch for all kinds of reasons. Maybe your dad was a Marine or something, and you want to go to the Marines because of that. Maybe ask him. See if he would advise you to the Marines. I know a lot of parents of Marines and Army, recommend Navy and Air Force and yada yada. But make sure that you join a branch because you want to, not because of your family history or whatever reason. But if you've got some time on your hands before you have to join or before you want to join, do your research now. Start looking into what jobs in the branch that you want that would make sense for you, that you would have the most fun with. And then once you have those five picked, because you can't just go in with one and be like, this is what I'm going to get, because the military will determine where it needs you and they'll place you there, so you have to pick multiples. Pick those now, and then before you even talk to a recruiter, go on to some subreddits. Try to find that job, like a subreddit of that job. Maybe join a military-oriented Discord and start talking to some of the vets and active duty, guard, reserve guys in there, and ask them about what the job is like from the inside. And don't just settle for one perspective. If the first person you ask just absolutely hates it, find another one who likes it. And help you round out the perspective, That way, and pretty much everything this job will entail, the good and the bad of it, so that you can make a better decision on it. And then once you've got your jobs picked, from there, it's probably about time to start talking to a recruiter. They've got practice ASVABs the recruiters can give you. If you've got your jobs picked out, if you've already done his work for him, or her, then you've made their job easy, so they're not going to really try and give you too much hassle about trying something else. But then you can take the practice ASVAB there in the recruiter's office, and before you even go to the military and processing center. And if you're not the best in school, maybe that's one of the reasons why you're planning on joining. I'm gonna tell you right now, you might score pretty low on the ASVAB, which might knock a couple of those jobs that you really wanted off the list. And this is where I'm going to try and do a hard sell on you on preparing yourself. There's plenty of practice ASVABs online. Before you take your practice ASVAB at a recruiter's office or the actual ASVAB at the MEPS. There's practice ASVABs online, there's study materials for the ASVAB. You owe it to yourself to set yourself up to be in the position to get to the jobs that you want. Even if you're not a good student, this is at least something that will directly impact, a major decision in your life. That math test in Algebra 2 doesn't matter nearly as much as this ASVAB will for the next 4 or 6 years of your life. So you owe it to yourself to actually put effort into this. And if you score low on an ASVAB, you don't like it, ask to retake it. There's nothing wrong with that. Take some time, do the prep stuff, and then come back and take it again and score higher. I often get asked, since I had a somewhat combat-oriented AFSC, I would say somewhat, it was combat-oriented. People planning on joining infantry asked me about it, and it's like, well, I don't have like direct advice for infantry because I was an aerial gunner, but it's still some of the things apply. It's just like, well, why do you want to do a combat MOS? And you have to really ask yourself, like, what's driving you into that? There's people that have a drive to do that job for the right reasons. And if you find, that your reason's a little bit lacking on why you're going into a combat job, then maybe consider something else. Because, and this is something I tell people all the time, is when you get a combat job, like, I'll just use mine, for instance. When I was a aerial gunner in Special Missions Aviator and I got out, I realized that my job didn't apply. Well, I knew before even then. My job didn't apply to the civilian world. Putting an aerial gunner on an AC-130 down on my resume and turning it into a staff writing job is like, they're like, wow, that's really cool. Cool. Next resume. It doesn't get you any brownie points. With the hiring manager. So, and that gets into like, well, what are you trying to get out of the military? Is the military your stepping stone, or are you planning on doing the full 20? If it's just a stepping stone for you, then I would recommend picking a job that's going to set you up for when you get out. There's plenty of jobs with high-level certifications that you can get while you're in the military that will translate to real-world experience and set you up for a job immediately, just as soon as you get out. You don't have to pass go to college. You can go straight into that job when you get out and make way more money than you were making in the military, and that's great. And I highly recommend doing that. If you have the drive to do a combat MOS, my recommendation, try to do it for the full 20, because once you get out, it's going to be really difficult to use the experience while you were in to get a job. This isn't like going to blow anyone's mind, but recruiters, they're car salesmen, used car salesmen at that. Their job is to sell you on jobs. If you've picked like maybe 3, you don't really know what the rest are that you want. The recruiter's going to try and sell you stuff that you really don't want. He might pick something crazy like security forces for you, and you have no interest in being a cop. Like, I wouldn't go that route. But understand that the recruiter's gonna be lying to you. Maybe they try to sell you on something, but again, go back to looking for perspective on the jobs that the recruiter's telling you for, and trying to find people that are in those jobs and whether or not they like it or not. There's a lot of people who've joined the military who are like, well, why would I want to be like finance or something like that? Like, I don't want to do my service and get out and be like, well, someone thanked me for it, and all I was doing travel vouchers and stuff. And it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with that. You're still serving. And my recommendation for everyone is, when you go in, they're going to try and make it sound, the recruiters are going to try and make it sound good to do a 6-year contract. And I'll tell you honestly, the benefits of a 6-year contract over 4 aren't that great, and it's an extra 2 years. You don't know until you're in the military whether or not you're actually going to like the military. So sign up for 4. It's a job that you can't quit. So pick a job that you have found out about that you would actually like, and sign up for 4, because you might like the job but not the military structure. Give yourself an out. Like, save yourself those 2 years, because I did a 6-year contract and I did the math, and the earlier date of rank and the extra pay that came along with it was not enough to warrant the extra 2 years. If the military is your plan, make sure you don't jeopardize your plan by like getting into trouble. If you're 16, you're still in high school, I know that it's tempting to go out and party, get into some shenanigans and stuff like that. And I'm not telling you not to have fun, but if you start messing around with like hard drugs, doing some high-level crimes, and you get caught, you're going to make a world of hurt to try to get into the military, because even if you get that stuff expunged, it still has a very high possibility of showing up on a background check. And there were some jobs, like jobs that demand clearances, that you'll just be disqualified from. So save yourself that hassle, and have fun, but don't get into trouble that prevents you from carrying out your plan. And another piece of advice that I always give people is take care of yourself. The military, even some of the jobs that are less high speed, take a demanding toll on the body, mechanics and stuff like that. One of my brother's friends just got out of the military, and his back is completely destroyed. And I tried telling him when he went in as a diesel mechanic, I was like, take care of yourself, man, because I've heard those guys, they lose their back a lot. And sure enough, he did. So I don't know entirely if that's just he disregarded my advice, but take care of yourselves. you know, and that goes into all things, you know. If you've got a few years before you're planning on joining the military because you're 16 or whatever, start taking care of yourself now. You know, start doing a little bit of running. You know, start doing your push-ups, your sit-ups, stuff like that. Make sure you can pass the minimums, and then, you know, maybe not eat a pizza every fucking night. You know, introduce some vegetables into your diet. You know, make sure that you've got the vitamins you need, because, and this is something that you'll all find out, is eventually you do get old. You know, everyone thinks they're young forever, but I'm evidence of that fact that yeah, you get old. So do yourself a favor now and take care of your body so that when you do get out of the military, it's not like a car losing its transmission. I know a lot of young people have you know, interest in going into you know, special forces, you know, selections courses for stuff like you know, pararescue, you know, CCT, TACP, you know, Green Berets, Rangers, yada yada, all that stuff. And my advice is right now is to do an assessment of yourself, an honest assessment of yourself. If you're 5'8" and as skinny as a fucking toothpick, I'm gonna tell you right now, save yourself a world of hurt, and maybe consider not going into these selection courses because they'll eat you up. Yeah, it's even for the most, you know, exceptional physical specimen, these courses are insanely difficult. You know yourself, and if you can't, you know, keep up with your peers, and you decide you want to go into special forces, you're just deluding yourself. You know, take an honest assessment of yourself and tell yourself whether or not you can actually do special forces. Just because it's cool doesn't mean that it's for you. And that's another thing, is a lot of people go into special forces and combat MOSs as an ego boost. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get the ego boost that you think you will just because you get into special forces or into a combat MOS. All those ego boosts are temporary. It's always something to be a little bit prideful of, but at the same time, it's not where people think that, like, it's a rite of passage where you're just going to be an exceptional human being just because you went through this stuff. Clearances, though, again, that's one of those things. If there's a job that you really want, but you're first generation, you know, born in the United States, I'm going to let you know right now, and I'm sorry to say it, is you're not going to get a top secret clearance or above. So if you really want to go intel, but you know, your family immigrated here, you're first generation, just start looking for something else. I know it sucks, but that's just the way it is. The military is not it's not built to be, you know, inclusive, and you might be the best person for that job, but the military doesn't care. And I'll finish it up here. Is what's my take on basic training? Because a lot of people that are going into the military the first time, they're terrified of it, you know, because they don't know what to expect. And that's part of the reasons why basic training is so effective as a rite of passage for people joining the military, is because of that unknown fear going into it. They break you down to build you back up. You're not going to be in mortal danger or anything like that. Just know that, and boot camp is literally the lowest bar in the military. You're going to be pushed, you're going to be tested, but it's not going to break you. And that's the point. You know, it's there to build you up into a better person. And a lot of the regimentation that comes from military basic training, people, like, maybe you had an older brother who went through basic training and, you know, suddenly, you know, you're there at his graduation day and he seems like a robot. Don't worry about that. Everyone comes down off of that. There's this big idea about people who join the military that we all get indoctrinated. And it's like, well, yeah, temporarily, short term. But at some point, you know, once you're out of they can't keep that environment up, you know, 24/7. That makes you regimented like that. It's not realistic, and it's ultimately not what they want out of the people they're training, because they want you to think. So yeah, don't worry about basic training. It's more of a mind game than anything else. You'll get through it just fine as long as you realize that, hey, it's a mind game. You know, this will be over in, you know, a couple weeks, couple months, and, you know, then you'll be in your unit. And I guess some parting thoughts on this is just that the military has a lot of good and bad experiences in it. You know, it's a wonderful, terrible time, and you make some of the best, worst memories that you've ever had, and some relationships and friendships that will last with you for the rest of your life. And I think that's one of the reasons, like, a lot of people are, like, so confused by, like, veterans. You know, like, well, it sounds like some of the stories you're telling me are, like, oh, they're terrible. Why do you miss it? And it's just one of the things. Once you join the military, you'll understand. it's not something that most veterans will want to take back, you know? And that's one of the reasons that I don't try to dissuade people, is because joining the military is an experience that will last with you for the rest of your life and will make you a better person. So I think that's all I have. Y'all stay wonderful. Peace.
Here we go.
Oh yeah.
Wake up to the siren. Another rocket attack.
Watch out.
Taliban man, he can't hit shit, but the sucker keeps coming back.
Yes, he does.
So we hunker down in the bunker. Everybody sits on edge. Gunships let the lead fly free. Another Taliban man is dead at Kandahar.